Hello, it's Angela, and welcome back to Literature Science Alliance. So today, I'm going to figure out which Booktube SFF science fiction book I'm going to be voting for in the awards this year. So if you want to know how I normally rate books, I will put that in the cards. I am including my enjoyment factor into how I will vote, but I felt like for awards, I wanted to have a different rubric for that. And on this rubric, I will include my enjoyment, so if you want to know how I do that, I will just link that video. But I just figure there should be more into how I decide which Booktube SFF book I pick for the award. And if you don't know, these are awards that happen every year, and these are based on books that came out in 2019. And the three nominees this year for the science fiction category were Gideon the Ninth, A Memory Called Empire, and Recursion. So I've read all of these a few weeks ago, a month ago or so I've had some time. Now I just want to sit down, talk with you about how I have rated them with my current rubric here, and which one I'm going to vote for. So the rubric I'm going to be using for this and other categories includes my enjoyment, how innovative the book was, like is it really unique for the genre? The more unique it is, the closer to 5. If it's average, a 3. I don't actually know if you can get a 1 or 2 for me for innovation. I guess maybe if it's just so cookie cutter, that would have to be like a 1. And then lasting impact, which is hard to measure here, but it has been a few weeks to a month, so I can at least compare among these 3 which one has been having a longer impact on me. Themes in terms of quality of themes and execution of those themes. And also this is science fiction, so whatever scientific element they are using, I want to judge how that worked out. So this is the rubric I'm using, and in no particular order, I'm going to go through how I rated each books with that idea. So Gideon the Ninth is the first one on my pile. This is a really interesting book. I do have a review for it, so if you want to know how I came to my enjoyment rating of a 3, you can find it there. This is a story of the swordswoman Gideon and the necromancer Harrow solving a mystery to kind of continue a legacy in this necromancer world. That's like a cut and dried, dirty synopsis of this one. And so how am I rating it in the other categories? So I said 3 for enjoyment. For innovation, I'm giving it a 4 because it does a lot. I don't think it executes it very well for me, which is why it's not a 5. If the execution was really good, well, a lot of these ratings might be higher, but it is not only sci-fi, it is also fantasy, it's also like a gothic murder mystery. There's a lot going on here. I've also never had necromancy done in this way, so I found that very innovative. I find that this book is quite unique in the science fiction genre. Now that said, how did it do on its science fiction elements? I gave this like a 2.5, cause it's such a fantasy book to me. There is space travel, so that's there for a little bit, and I will say Deanie brought up to me that they, as they're solving these mysteries, they are put through challenges that do involve some level of technology that is a higher level of science fiction, and it is done in a way that I haven't quite seen before, so it doesn't get a 1. It gets a 2.5. All right, and themes. So themes are hard for me to think of for this one. There's definitely themes of forgiveness, of legacy, freedom, loyalty, but I didn't really like the execution of some of the themes. Like loyalty and forgiveness are definitely themes here, but I don't like how they were approached much at all. I mentioned in my review, there's just a lot of toxic abuse in this book. And I don't know, I just don't think it was handled eloquently in terms of these themes. So I gave themes a 2. And lasting impact, I think this is an average book for me. I think in a few months it will be a book I have read. I might pick up the second book, so depending on how that book goes will increase or decrease the impact of this one. And when I put all of that together, this actually gets a 3, almost exactly like my enjoyment rating, which hasn't happened with the other 2 books, but I just thought that was funny. And the next book is A Memory Called Empire. Now, I didn't ever do a review for this one, but I do have a vlog where I go into more in-depth thoughts about it, so I'll post that in the cards. And down below, I'm going to put Jocelyn's review from Yogi with the Book, because I feel like a lot of her thoughts really align with what I think about this book and why I love this book. But this one I gave a 4 for my enjoyment. If that isn't clear, it was wonderful. And for its scientific elements, this is a space opera, which means you have multiple planets and different cultures, and you get to go into what that means and how these people interact. There's also space travel. There's also really cool technology used, both on the in the Empire and in the station. I haven't talked about what this book's about. It's about an ambassador who goes to this planet because they're trying to figure out what happened to the past ambassador, and political chaos ensues from there. And it's just wonderful. So I thought its scientific elements were superb, like 4.5, right? Yes, that's what I gave it, because I don't normally love space operas. I think they're fine. This one I loved a lot more than normal. So that's what I gave it there. As for innovation, I do think, although I loved the scientific element, I don't know if it's that different from other space operas, so I gave it like a 3.5. I don't know if it did anything that striking for the genre in that way. But themes, I gave it a 5 for themes. For the themes it addresses and its execution, I loved it. It addresses xenophobia, colonialism, the idea of memory and how cultures are passed down, the idea of language and culture, the subtle things you don't notice when you go to a different country, like, of course, the language is different, but the gestures, the pauses, what is said and left unsaid. So good. Maybe it's because I'm a daughter of an immigrant, but I loved the themes here. It even has this idea of you still want to be true to your culture, but you also are in love with the culture that's trying to basically eat yours up and change it. The themes are really good in this one. And because of the themes, I feel like this is going to have a lasting impact on me. I told you guys I haven't done a review yet, and I think that's because the first time I was reading it for pure enjoyment. And I'm probably going to reread it before the sequel comes out, and if I do that, I would want to take more rigorous notes and really dissect it, and I think that's going to be part of why it will last longer for me. There's a lot in here that I just think is such quality. So putting all that together, this got a 4.2, which is really high because I'm like pretty stringent on some categories. And then the last one is Recursion. And I think Recursion was kind of my inspiration for making a rubric like this, because I enjoyed Recursion the most. I'm also going to put it down and put a picture up because I think it's washing out my face on this camera. But Recursion was a really fun read. I gave it like 4.5 stars. I picked it up in a week where I felt like I needed a plot-driven sci-fi to keep me going. I was right, and it delivered. It was a very fun read. And for scientific element, I also gave it 4.5 because can't talk about what the element is without spoilers, but I've never seen the element done so well. And that's all I'll say about that, but I just thought it was done extremely well, and I think it deserves credit for that, because I think it's a tricky element to pull off. Now, innovation, I just think this is an average science fiction book. I don't think it's pushed any new ground. I think that I could easily give this to people who are uncomfortable with science fiction because it doesn't push sci-fi. It's a very accessible book, there's nothing wrong with that. I just don't think it's particularly innovative. And themes, I thought were done pretty well as well. I think the execution wasn't perfect, or it wasn't groundbreaking, so it discusses, the themes of grief, of inconsistent memory, of the idea of what ifs, what if I'd gone down that path, what if things had gone differently. So you really get all of that on top of, who is allowed to have certain technology, the idea of creating something powerful, and then who's in charge of how it's used is done pretty well here. It's very, synonymous to the people who made the atomic bomb. It's very parallel to that. So I think the themes are done well. So I gave the themes like a 4. And I think where it gets the lowest for me is lasting impact. I don't think I will be thinking about this book in a few months. I don't think it's going to stay with me for that long. It's not a bad book. I had a great time, but I think it's very flash in the pan for me. It was a fun read. I had a good time. I don't think I'll reread it. I just think that's where it is for me. I don't think I need to dissect it. I don't feel the need to annotate it. I don't think it has that lasting impact. So it got a 3.6 when I did the math over all of that. So what does that mean if you've been keeping track? It means I will be voting for A Memory Called Empire. It was a really good book. I highly recommend it. I know I didn't give the synopsis justice here, but Please check out Jocelyn's review or look at my vlog if you are at all interested in this book. It is really beautiful. I really love what Arkady Martine did here. It's a wonderful book. And I hope you guys liked this video. I enjoyed putting it together and hope to do it for the other categories that I have read in for the Booktube SFF Awards. Comment down below if you've read any of these books, if you think you'll pick up any of these books. I would love to hear what you have to say. Like this video if you want to make me smile, and other than that, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye.